The Walking Dead is the greatest show in the world, and I know I say this every single freaking video, but it is because it is true. The storyline and the characters just make the show so freaking addictive when you're watching it. The story has a guy who gets shot, goes into a coma, and wakes up in the apocalypse. Just think about how scary that is. All he wants to do is find his family, and he finds them, only to find out that his best friend slept with his wife and got her pregnant. And then his best friend tries to kill him for his wife. The first couple of the seasons in The Walking Dead are the most craziest tongue-tied episodes. You are watching it going, is Shane gonna kill Rick? Is Rick gonna kill Shane? And you don't know what is going on. All you know that is they were best friends, and now they are fighting each other for one girl. You might think, Shane Walsh, the man everyone loved and hated from The Walking Dead. He was a loose cannon, the jealous reveal, the guy who seemed just a little too ruthless and a little too brutal, a little too quick to throw away morals for survival. But I'm saying, what if Shane wasn't the villain? What if Shane was right? And I know this video isn't on what if Shane was right, but see, Shane just wasn't a hothead. He was way ahead of everyone. He was too smart for their idealism, too realistic for their hope. He understood one brutal truth. In a world overrun by the dead, you can't be a good guy and expect to live. And while everyone else was clung on to their rules and their humanity, Shane was already playing the game on a different level. The level Rick Grimes would only reach after losing everything. This is the story on how Rick Grimes became Shane and how hopeful Sheriff slowly transformed into the cold, ruthless survivor Shane warned him about. Because Shane was never wrong, we just weren't ready to listen. Think of how Rick only became Shane once he lost absolutely everything. Shane never had anything to begin with. All he had was his best friend's wife, and when his best friend came back trying to take that from him, he went ruthless and tried to kill him. Let's talk about the first time we saw Shane and Rick. This one wouldn't really take place if it wasn't for Shane pushing his limits. Shane tried killing Rick, and this resulted in Rick killing Shane. Now, yes, this does mean Rick is becoming a little bit of a Shane because Shane did try killing him and Rick didn't try helping him. He just immediately killed him. He did lead on Shane by saying, we can go back to the farm and we can forget about this and blah blah blah, but no, he was not taking any of that. He just stabbed his best friend in the heart and walked off to his family, or more like a burning farm. And when the group was a camp outside of Atlanta, they all looked up to Shane. Why? Maybe because he's a cop. But when Rick got there, how come they weren't the iconic duo leaders for a little bit? Well, maybe because people didn't trust Rick. No one thought Rick was the person that he was. But after Shane died, Rick took that place immediately. Rick takes over and ends up becoming the leader in complete control. Once we're at the prison, do you remember when Rick cut off Hershel's leg? Well, there were some people staying in the cafeteria because they were locked up there for the past 10 months. None of them knew that it was the apocalypse, but once one of them found out that it was and realized there's no more rules anymore, I love killing people. Now I get to do it for fun and to stay alive? Let's do it! Well, that guy's name was Thomas, and when he was ending up trying to clear some walkers out with Rick, he throws one at him and says, shit happens. Rick doesn't take that from him and say, yeah, shit does happen. Machetes him right in the fucking head. No clarity, doesn't ask anyone what to do with him, just does it. No questions asked. Then, during season 3 as well, after Lori's death, Rick emotionally detaches and shuts down, mirroring Shane's early coldness when he was trying to kill Rick. Glenn even tried talking to Rick, saying, you're scaring everyone. And Rick low-key scared the shit out of Glenn by fucking pinning him to a wall and saying, get the fuck out of here. And then we got times like in season 4 when Joe's group comes and tries to kill Rick. Pinning Carl down to the ground, Rick does not take that. Immediately pushes the gun away from Joe and bites him right in the fucking throat. Rick definitely saw Joe as a threat to Carl and killed him just like he did to Shane in the field. Moral of the story, don't kill Coral of Rick Grimes. Next up, we got executing Gareth and the cannibals. Now, we all remember this scene. Rick, what'd you put outside in the dirt? We saw it. It's got a 47 Magnum, compound bow, and a machete with a red handle. That's what I'm going to use to kill you. And then ends up having them in the church, and Garrett goes, I will never do it again. I'll never even hurt a person. He goes, yeah, but I already made you a promise, and kills him with the machete with the red handle. That is the coldest moment. Rick being so merciless and killing him and his group makes him an even more Shane lover than Shane himself. This is kind of a little bit before, but when Rick killed the butchers as well. He brutally killed the Terminus butchers by grabbing a steak and killing them. Not a steak you eat, a fucking wooden steak from the wood in the sea container. Guys, you know what I mean. Now, yes, of course this was out of self-defense, but I mean, back then, he would have just escaped. He would have just left and let them be. Then we got badass Rick Grimes threatening Alexandrians. Aaron didn't even say anything, and he low-key just punches him right in the fucking face and knocks him out, and then holds him prisoner. But he also demands the Alexandrians toughen up or die. And this ties to him killing Pete just to protect Jesse and to sleep with her. Now, if you guys think about it, Shane wanted to kill Rick because he was in love with his wife. Well, doesn't that sound a little bit familiar when Rick is killing Pete just so he can sleep with his wife? Rick kills Pete after he assaults Jesse. And yes, self-defense, but yet again, Diana did say, we can just put him out the walls. Like, we can just put him out the walls and he can ask to fend for himself and the walkers, and Rick goes, no, we're fucking killing this guy. Next up in Season 6, Episode 12, we have the planning of the massacre on the Saviors in their sleep. This one's kind of obvious. He's going in there trying to find whoever the hell Negan is, going into these outposts and killing random people while they sleep. They could have been a family with a wife and kids, but no, he just slowly stabs them in the head while they sleep. Things also tied to it is training Carl to harden up. Yes, he pushes Carl to become a ruthless survivor, which he ends up getting killed because of doing something nice. And you know what? I feel like that's better for Carl rather than Carl dying trying to kill the Saviors. And he did try killing all the Saviors, but he didn't die, actually. Negan thought it was pretty badass. And last but not least, we have imprisoning Negan forever. Rick cages Negan for life, choosing control over killing. Now, this wouldn't really tie into Shane, but him just keeping Negan alive just to prove a point is even more crazy than Shane trying to kill Rick. And you might be thinking, what is this guy yapping about? How is him saving Negan after he just slit his throat even more crazy than Shane trying to kill Rick? Negan killed Glenn in front of his pregnant wife. And Rick is just gonna stay there and let this guy live? And in the end, Shane wasn't a villain. He was a blueprint. Rick Grimes started this story as a man, law and family, and hope. But as the world changed and declined, so did the pieces of Rick that made him very different from Shane. The man who once judged Shane for doing the unthinkable, eventually doing it all by himself. He became the executor, the warlord, and the man who would kill a husband to protect and later love his wife. The man who would slaughter the name of peace and control the name of mercy. Shane saw the truth early. This world doesn't reward a good man, it breaks them. And by the time Rick stood over a kneeling Negan covered in blood, ruling Alexandria like a king, he wasn't just a survivor, he was Shane. The difference? Rick just took longer to admit it, and by the time he did, there was no going back.